¿Qué tal? In this video today, I want to talk about one of the challenges that we have as Spanish learners, and that is to manage our fear of having conversations with other Spanish speakers. And you'll be interested in this if you are at a level with your Spanish where you think, yeah, look, I feel like I want to have conversations in order to practice what I know, but there's a fear that is holding you back. My name's Tony Burns, and I'm very interested in this fear because I, for many years, ran a business here in New Zealand where I helped people manage their fear of public speaking. And what I learned when I started learning Spanish is that there is a fear of foreign language speaking as well, and I have suffered from it. And so I started to use some of the strategies that I used to teach people about overcoming their fear of public speaking. I started using them on myself. And now I'm very interested in helping other people who have been in the same boat as me, and that is to figure out what are some of the things that are stopping us from getting out there and using this wonderful language that we're learning. So look, here's the main thing that I want you to get from this video. You may think you have a fear of making mistakes, but what you really have a fear of is people's reactions if you were to make a mistake. So in this video, I want to talk about why it makes sense that we think that it's the mistake that causes the problem, but then why the distinction, that it's the reaction of other people, why that's important, and then finally, what can you do with that information? How can that help you get yourself out there and use the Spanish that you have? All right, so let's start with why does it make sense? Why have you always thought that it's the mistake that is causing the fear? You don't want to open your mouth, have a conversation with that Spanish speaker because of your fear of making a mistake. And the reason for that is, in the past, when you made mistakes of certain types, you were criticized, you were mocked, you were laughed at, you were told you were wrong, that you were bad, all sorts of history that created bad feelings in you, made you feel shameful, made you feel small, hurt you. And it seems that that's like directly connected to the fact that you made a mistake. If you hadn't have made the mistake, that thing wouldn't have happened. Well, yes, but there's an intermediary there. Although there's a correlation between the mistake and the bad feeling, the fact is there's an intermediary, and that is the reaction of the other person. And if that other person hadn't reacted in the same way, you wouldn't have that bad feeling. However, I just want to make the point that it totally makes sense that we have this fear, and many people do. Hundreds of thousands of people have that fear, and I learnt that from helping people with their fear of public speaking. They realized that if they made a mistake but no one noticed it, then it didn't matter. They didn't have that fear. And I realized at that time, it's like, oh, so it's not the mistake that's causing the problem. It's the reaction of other people. If people don't know you've made a mistake, then they don't react. And therefore, there is no problem. It's not the mistake that's the problem. It's the reaction of other people. And this was reinforced for me in the nearly a year that I spent living in Spain, in Barcelona, where I had to have conversations in shops, bars, restaurants, at the medical center, booking things, all sorts of times where I had to use Spanish. My Spanish was not nearly as good as it is now, but at times I just had to use it. And I wanted to use it. I wanted to practice. I mean, here I was. Why would I not want to use it? Well, because of making a mistake. Yeah, but here's the thing. Hardly ever did I get corrected or mocked or teased or taught how to do the Spanish better by anyone. And for sure, I'm sure I was making mistakes when I was ordering things and asking for things and doing the shopping, all that sort of thing. I'm sure I was making mistakes, but people didn't react. And so I didn't react. I didn't know I'd made a mistake. I'd made a mistake, but I had no negative feelings about it. So therefore, that proves that it's not the mistake that causes the negative feelings. It's not the mistake that we're fearful of. What we're fearful of is the way people react. And that is a really important distinction, because that leads me on to my third thing. What we can do with this knowledge. If we can remove the reaction of other people from our Spanish practice, then we won't have that fear, and then we'll speak more. We'll get on with it. We'll use the Spanish that we've got. So here are 3 ways in which we can remove the reaction of other people from the formula when we're speaking Spanish. Number 1 is have no other person around. Speak some Spanish out loud to yourself. And one of the things that is, I think, really useful to practice is talking about yourself as if you're meeting someone for the first time. So, tell them where you live, whether you've got family, if you've got a job, what you do, what your interests are, how long you've been learning Spanish, why you're learning Spanish, what Spanish places have you visited, all sorts of things like that. Those are the sorts of things that you'd talk about on an everyday basis. Don't make it too hard, but just speak out loud for yourself. And don't get concerned about making mistakes. Just go for it. Get into the concept of fluency above accuracy, or, confidence over competence. Just get out there and use the Spanish and enjoy the good feelings of opening your mouth without being interrupted or made to feel bad in some way. So you can do that just by speaking out loud by yourself. Now, there are times when you're doing that you might struggle to speak, and that can raise issues for you, and that's something to talk about in another video. But in the meantime, what I'm suggesting is just get on and talk and see what it feels like to just be able to keep going and not be interrupted and not corrected or made to feel bad in any way. So that's one of your options. Practice by yourself. Another option is find someone to practice with, and that could be a teacher, a friend who speaks Spanish, but set up beforehand that you do not want them to stop and correct you and to teach you at any time. Especially if you've got a teacher and you're paying for that person, it's up to you. If you want them to be that way, just so that you can get the feel of talking without that, then that's what they're paid for. And with a friend, you may have a friend that you can trust and who doesn't even correct you at the moment anyway. So practice with that person and get, again, used to the feeling of not being corrected, of not being interrupted, of just speaking and using the Spanish that you've got. And then the third option is Charlemos. And this is my advertisement for something which is absolutely free, which I set up for myself in order to be able to practice my Spanish without being corrected and without being taught and without having any of those challenges. Charlemos is a group that I have online that we practice together using Zoom, so it's actual real conversation. You practice one-on-one, and in Charlemos there are no native speakers and there are no teachers as well. And in fact, if we want to, we can change to English whenever we need to. But one of our core rules and principles is we do not correct each other. We do not point out if the other person has made a mistake. We just let them get on with it. And then as a result of that, you can get into your conversation and the other person will reply to you. And if you hear them make a mistake, you say nothing either. But you have your conversation, you're communicating and it's flowing and you can talk about whatever you want to. And it can be fun. It can be a huge laugh, in fact. We thoroughly enjoy using the Spanish that we've got. And this is, again, about practicing as opposed to learning more. And what I've noticed for me in these conversations is that over the time that I've been communicating, practicing with these other people, my fluency has improved, my confidence has improved, I can hear it in my speed, and then I notice the mistakes that I make myself and I self-correct them. And to me, that is actually more powerful in terms of a lasting effect if I am to self-correct than to have someone else correct me. Now, look, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have a teacher or ever have people correct you. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is it is very useful to, at times, be in the state where you get to practice without being corrected and get used to speaking fluently and not worrying about mistakes. And so I hope this distinction that it's not the mistake that you're afraid of, it's the reaction of other people, is useful, and that you can use one of those strategies to start practicing using your Spanish in an environment where you are not going to be subjected to a negative reaction from another person. Now, look, this is just one of the steps of improving your Spanish, obviously. I'm going to make more videos about this topic, so if you enjoyed this, please give me a like, do the subscribe thing so that you get other videos in regard to this, and I'd be very interested in your comments and your stories in regard to whether this has been helpful for you.